Tonight on True Crime Talk. Sergeant James Lee Haynes was a war hero. He was murdered on Bolt Mountain in Raleigh County, West Virginia. His body has never been located. The U.S. Army declared him dead on December 8, 1964. This man earned the Purple Heart in Korea at the age of just 18. James Lee Haynes, a 32-year-old U.S. Army sergeant, was murdered and disposed of while on his way to deliver some Christmas presents to his mother and stepfather in West Virginia on December 7th, 1963. He was a career military man and had just returned from a tour of duty in Germany. James and his wife lived in Baltimore, Maryland, along with their children. Their car was not an option at the time of the intended family visit, so Sergeant Haynes decided he'd hitchhike 370 miles to see his family. According to legend, Sergeant James Lee Haynes is one of the Mad Butcher's final victims. But according to the police theory of the crime, 3 suspects got into a brawl with Haynes and then followed him in their vehicle and ran him over on Bolt Mountain Road. The 3 men allegedly bragged about the crime to others. They said they initially weren't sure whether they had killed Haynes or not, so they backed over the body until they were sure he was dead. They put his body in the trunk of the vehicle and buried him somewhere on Bolt Mountain. Was Sergeant James Lee Haynes one of the final victims of the Mad Butcher of West Virginia? Or was he, as the police theorize, a victim of 3 men who got violent with Sergeant Haynes after a chance encounter? Could one of these 3 men or all the 3 men be responsible for several of the victims believed to have been killed by the Mad Butcher of West Virginia? Welcome to True Crime Talk. Joining us here today, we have Linda and Brenda Haynes, and they are joining us because we are continuing our Mad Butcher of West Virginia conversation. And here we have 2 ladies that have been fighting long and very hard for their family. Their father went missing decades ago, and they're here to tell us a bit about their father and about the circumstances surrounding his disappearance and the efforts that will be taken very soon in hopes of finding this man, recovering his remains, and getting this investigation off of the ground. It's a shame that it doesn't seem like much has been done, and it's been a long, hard battle for you 2 ladies, and I'm sorry that you've had to endure that. But if you fight long enough, usually things start to go your way, and it sounds like that's where we are today. So I want to start off here, if you will allow me, because you sent me a good amount of paperwork and some information about your father and his disappearance. His name is James Lee Haynes, and he was a sergeant in the Army. He was a decorated officer, and his disappearance is surrounded by a lot of rumor over the years, but there's one prevailing theory and story that always has been kind of tied to his disappearance, and it sounds like that might be where the breadcrumb trail needs to go. So, ladies, one of the items that was sent to me by you is it contained a copy of a picture, and I see this lovely family here. I see mother and father dressed in their Sunday's best, and I see 2 young children in the middle, but 2 very little babies, one in mom's arms, one in dad's arms. I'm assuming those are the cute little twins that I'm talking to right now, Linda and Brenda.
Yes, I'm in daddy's lap because I got dad's middle name, and Linda had mom's middle name. So anytime they were going to take pictures, I was going to be either sitting on dad's lap or standing beside him or That's something they decided back then.
And then also there's a picture of him in his uniform, in his dress uniform. Now, tell us a little bit about your father's military career. From what I understand, he joined the Army at the young age of 17.
Yes. In Ravencliff, West Virginia. He joined at 17 because, from what I understand, he always wanted to join the Army, but he joined it early because his family had moved from one area to another, and he wasn't around his friends anymore. And he says, well, might as well go now.
When he's 18, he receives a Purple Heart because he was shot in the chest while serving in Korea.
Yes, sir. They said you could put a finger in the hole in his chest, but you could put a fist in his back where it came out. He spent a year and a half between Japan and California getting healthy, and then went back to service.
He goes back to service. He's in the Army for another 10 years, okay? And then there's a transitional period from Germany to Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Yes.
And so he's in Baltimore, Maryland, or in that general area on leave. And then we have mom and the 4 kids. You guys are already in Maryland at your grandfather's. We're going to Maryland for your grandfather's funeral. Is that correct?
Yes, Mom and us kids came back in June because my grandfather passed away. And
the 2 of you are not even 2 years old at this time.
No, when my grandfather passed, we were a year old. And when Dad came back, he was here for about 2 weeks, maybe 3. They were waiting on his van to come over from Germany. It was supposed to be here on the 5th of December. And because of a strike over in Germany, it wasn't getting here in time.
They had went to New York to pick it up and was told then that it was delayed and that it would be shipped to South Carolina or North Carolina?
South Carolina.
And it wouldn't be there until after the first of the year in 1964. And so that's when Mom and Dad Dad decided, I guess Mom just agreed, that he was going to hitchhike home and see his parents that he hadn't seen in 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. But the 5th was Mom and Dad's anniversary. That's why he decided to head out on the 7th. And then he wanted to get back before Christmas.
Do we believe that he was he dressed as an officer when he was hitchhiking?
He was in his dress greens. Yes, sir.
We have a second set of his dress greens in his army trunk that we still have. So he would have been in, I think, an army coat and his dress clothes.
And so we know he's going to be hitchhiking. He's in his dress greens. And one part of this that we believe to be factual is that a friendly woman and her child or grandchild pick him up, and her account of that day is that she gave him a ride to Oak Hill, West Virginia, which is a place that we keep hearing about with these different disappearances of men in the early 60s. Tell us, what do you ladies know about Oak Hill? Linda, we'll start with you.
Brenda and I, I think it was in July that we were there, and we went to Oak Hill. It's very small, and we believe that she was going to see one of her children at Oak Hill Hospital, and the last time she saw Dad, they had lunch in the cafeteria, and then they went separate ways. And then we drove back to Little Bolt Mountain and to see the distance. And if he, we're pretty sure he didn't get a ride or very long of a ride if he did get one to Ravencliff. But it was like in the afternoon when they had lunch, and then he hit the tavern probably, what, about 9 o'clock, Brenda?
That's what we're guessing.
Yeah, it was
I
evening.
do. Give me a second to look through my binder here. Because she heard about it on the news about my dad's disappearance.
So is that in the same town? Is that all in Oak Hill, this children's hospital and the tavern?
No, ma'am. Well, it's the tavern is called Bolt Tavern. So it's, I believe it's in a different county, isn't it, Bren?
This is from our friends over at the Charlie Project, which is CHARLEY. If anybody wants to go to their website, just Google the Charlie Project. You know, the lady that runs the Charlie Project, she does it out of the kindness of her heart. She doesn't make any money from it. They do accept some donations. I donate to her every now and then, and I have had the pleasure of meeting her. Her name is Megan Good, and I always tell her that she's been named very appropriately because she's doing very good work on the behalf of many, many people that she has never met, for families that she has never even spoke with. And she has a profile on there. This is a database of missing persons, and I believe it to be probably the most complete database of such that is available to us today. And she has a profile of your father. It says James Lee Haynes. Okay, so the picture she has on here, she believes it's from 1963, and he's been missing since 1963. She has a date of December 7th, missing from Wyoming County, West Virginia, classified as endangered missing, and we'll get into the particulars of some of the things that you've heard about your father's disappearance growing up. And he was 32 years old at the time, but there's not a lot of information, and that's the same as what I see here on from the Doe Network as well. So, and part of that has to do with the time period. But as we said, he was last seen hitchhiking to his parents' home.
Well, can I interrupt you for a second? Because the one that gave them the information for the Charlie Project and for the Doe Report was Raleigh County Sheriff's Department. So I've called them through the years, Raleigh County Sheriff, and asked them to update because they don't have any descriptions. They don't have that he has a scar on his chest or his back. They don't have that he was balding, that he had hazel eyes, or his ring finger had his wedding ring, I guess. But I've called them over the years, I know 5 times. And okay, we'll get on it.
Well, I can't do anything with the Doe Network because I believe that has to come from law enforcement, but I can certainly put you in touch with Megan Good. That won't be a problem at all. We'll get anything you want added on there with her approval. We can get added to the Charlie Project. No trouble at all.
I do want to add that we have information from 70, 71. There was a Trooper Bailey and Trooper Birchfield that there has been law enforcement that's been helpful through the years. Just we're not privy to any of the information, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. His case is from 1963. I don't know why they wouldn't share as much information with you as possible. Yeah, so before we get into some of the frustrations that you've had with the case over the years, I want to stick to the disappearance. So we have this story of the woman who takes him to Oak Hill, and that is a place that we are getting familiar with because, as said, you keep hearing that name, that town come up with the disappearances of other men around the same time period. And once in Oak Hill, you'd mentioned that eventually he makes his way to a tavern, but it's believed that he stopped in somewhere to have a meal. Any chance that something called the 4-minute lunch?
No, actually it was the hospital cafe.
Okay, because we've seen that 4-minute lunch come up in several of these missing person stories as well.
Yeah. But he
And
was actually seen after Oak Hill.
yes, so where is this tavern? You said the tavern is Bolt Mountain?
Yes, sir.
And you said you drove the distance from Oak Hill to Bolt Mountain. Tell us about that. What kind of distance are we talking about here? Because he might have been on foot.
It was about 30 miles.
So do you think he hitched a ride then? He wouldn't have tried to walk that distance, would he?
He might have walked it,
He would have.
or he could have hitchhiked. But from us remembering Mom's talking about him, he was a determined man. He if he needed to walk it, he would have walked it.
And your mother files a missing persons report in Maryland on December 10th, 1963, and it's believed the last known whereabouts is 3 days prior, December 7th. And then I believe his parents filed missing persons reports with Raleigh County, West Virginia as well. So he's reported missing by several people to different agencies. Over the years, I imagine you probably heard all kinds of crazy stories about what happened to your dad. And before we get into the one that seems to stand out among the rest, tell us about some of the things that you, Brenda, that you heard growing up.
Well, we heard that he was cut up for wild dog meat. He was thrown in a well. He was put in a mine shaft. They let hogs eat him. That we heard that when he left the bar, they ran over him and they backed over him to make sure he was dead. And but that's going into the other stories.
Were there any, with the exception of the vehicle story, were there ever any names tied to who might be responsible for any of those? There were?
Yeah.
He was last seen in the tavern. There was 4 men in the tavern plus the bartender when he got there. There was an altercation over him not wanting to drink because he was cold. He wanted coffee. And, you know, he was being ridiculed for that. But he was going to see his parents. He wasn't going to drink before he went to see his parents.
His father was a minister, and he had Bell palsy at the time also.
The fourth man there, his name, we don't know his full name. We just know him as B. And we've actually spoke with him when Brenda and I were up there later digging.
It was about 2017.
Yes, thank you. And he's the one that he said Dad left first. And not too long after that, the other 3 men left, which would have been Lundy Trump, James Floyd Cox, and Brenda.
James Paul Cozort.
Yeah.
So let's get back into the bar here for a
Yes,
second, because that's where I live. What is B telling you that's going? Did he go into great description about what's going on in the tavern before he sees your father leave?
Yes, that they were making fun of him, a big sergeant, because he was in his dress, drinking coffee in a tavern. They said, "Oh, you man up and have a beer," and he's like, "No, I'm not having a beer. I'm going to my parents' house." And so he just picked up a suitcase and left the bar.
Yeah, they start bothering him. He decides the best thing to do is I'm just going to, I need to venture on anyway, so I might as well just be on my way. And it's, mind you, it's nighttime. We believe it's nighttime. It's December 7th, 1963. It's December 7th in West Virginia. He's probably quite cold. We can assume
snowing.
Yeah, he's been out walking for maybe a considerable amount of time, and he just wants to warm up and then be on his way. And here are these really nice fellas that just decide that, oh, we have such a small self-esteem that we're gonna pick on this officer here who's by himself.
Now we
And
did hear that a fight broke out
in the bar,
in the bar.
and your father decides to leave, and B, this man who's going by B, he says, your dad leaves, then these three men left, and he's able to give names: William Lundy Trump, James Paul Cozort, and James Floyd Cox. They leave after your father has already left, and then B leaves shortly after that,
Right.
from my understanding.
Now, what we've learned in the time period is Lundy. We call him Lundy Trump. That's what we've always called him. Lundy Trump and James Paul Cozort are brother-in-laws, and James Cox is the Cozort's cousin.
And what does B tell you that he witnesses? I want to keep it all rumor out of this. Just straight up, what did B say that he witnessed after he left the tavern?
He was driving up Little Boat Mountain, and he's seen their car pulled off to the side of the road. He thought maybe they hit a deer. He said it was a gravel road and snow, and he didn't stop. He just slowed down and asked them if they needed help. And he noticed that the three men were bloody. And they said, no, you just keep going, mind your own business. And he kept going. And he thought maybe they hit a deer or what have you. And then a couple days later, he seen it on the newscast about my dad's disappearance. He did call the sheriff's department, and they told him they'd get back to him, and they'd send somebody out to talk to him, and nobody ever showed up.
When does this information, I mean, it's hard to say all these years later what and when your mother was aware of what was going on, but when does this information make its way to you ladies? I mean, you're very, very young at the time that he went missing. I know there was, sounds like there was a lot of work that went into this case, your father's case, in the early 70s.
I know one time they found the skull, and I remember the FBI coming to my mom and telling her that they found the skull they believed was Dad's. And it wasn't Dad's. It was a lady. I remember they called my mother to tell her that it wasn't Dad.
During this time, was your family aware of the other men that went missing during the same time period?
Yes, because my mom kept everything in a trunk, my dad's trunk. She didn't talk to us about it, being so young. But of course, we overheard everything. We heard about the Mad Butcher. We heard my mother speaking to different people. Now, Mom fought because she didn't get anything from the military. Stopped paying Dad. She didn't have any benefits. I know she got in contact with Robert Kennedy at the time, Bobby Kennedy. And he told her that that was out of his jurisdiction. He was the Attorney General. I have a note here where she sent a letter to the President Johnson, and I have his response. It's like 3 sentences saying, I'm sorry about what you're going through. I hope they find your husband safe and sound. Maybe you should go on welfare. That was it.
So because he's missing and there's no death certificate at this point, she's just asking for help as a missing veteran. Okay.
Yeah. And I have the records where she's going to Fort Meade. Fort Meade is here in Maryland to get the advocate from the Army to get involved and stuff. And I have some of their transcripts.
But the Army declared your father as deceased, what, a year and a day after he was reported missing?
Yes, sir. they told my mother they couldn't head the investigation because Dad didn't disappear off of a base. If Dad would have disappeared off a base, they could do something that they had to let the local authorities handle it.
We've always had a problem with that.
Yeah,
because soldiers are considered government property. And to me, they should try to find their property, because I know that if a soldier's sent overseas and he uses any part of his kit, he is charged for that. If they happen to use a first aid kit on him, or, the fire kit, whatever kit it is, the Army will find that soldier for that missing piece. So to me, all these years, it just blew my mind that the military would just give up.
Yeah, what happened to No Soldier Left Behind?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on foreign soil. We have this situation here, and violence, right? We have violence that is reported by a witness to a law enforcement agency about what may have happened to your father. And to expand on what B reported to law enforcement, it's now believed that these men engaged your father in an altercation outside of the tavern as he was attempting to walk away from the incident that took place inside of the tavern. He is attempting to walk away to visit his parents for Christmas, for the holiday season, and they accost him outside of the tavern, and it's believed that they ran him over with their vehicle, and that they were probably placing him in the trunk of that vehicle when B drives by and says, "Hey, do you guys need any help? Is everything okay?" They say, "Mind your own business. Get out of here." And those men are William Lundy Trump, James Paul Kozor, and James Floyd Cox. What do you ladies, Linda, we'll start with you. What do you know about these three men? Is there anything that we know about these three men?
Yes. William Lundy Trump was feared. Also, where Lundy lived at the top of his hill on his side of the mountain, there was a moonshiner, and he ran shine for the moonshiner, along with the Kozort brothers. And evidently one time he actually took a knife into the church and was going to stab people. Because I don't know why, but the Kozort brothers...
wait a minute, Linda. Tell them what he did to his children and his wife.
Oh, I've talked to his children, a few of them, and he stayed drunk all the time. When they heard his car coming, they had things ready to go hide in the woods, and they would spend the night in the woods and then come out and catch the school bus. And they were known to wear the same clothes 2 or 3 days in a row because they were afraid to go into the house. And the father would say, "Which one's your favorite today? Because that's the one I'm going to take from you." And he would shoot at them while they were up in the hills, threaten to stab them. He was just an awful, awful, evil man.
Next time on True Crime Talk.
After 62 years, fresh eyes are on the Raleigh County cold case of a beloved father. Sergeant James Lee Haynes went missing without a trace in December of 1963. This morning, Haynes' daughters, along with law enforcement and military, went looking on Bull Mountain after the Army requested help from the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office. Newswatch reporter Jillian Risberg learned that they are all about bringing closure to Brenda and Linda.
He abuses his wife, and one of his good friends is his wife's brother?
Yes.
What the hell? That doesn't, where I come from, that doesn't work that way.
Well, the Gazourts wasn't much better.
But the dog tags were his. They had his name on it.
Yeah.
That's something we found reported where it was, hey, we found these items. The items were shown to the family, and the family says they don't belong to our husband or father.
So those dog tags, were they found at the tavern, or were they found?
We don't know where they got the bloody rags from.